Hi everyone, this is Christina, the Crafty Chemie, and I'm coming to you as a part of a video hop that was put together by Sandra from Create in Spain. And the theme for this card hop was bling. So we're looking at shiny things, glittery things, large scripts, anything that's loud and bold. And so I'm going to show you how I made these 4 cards using glitter cardstock, mirror cardstock, and large die cut images. So for the backgrounds, I'm using Pea Designs scale cover plate. And I made these bunch of die cuts here. So I had cut out 3 white out of cardstock and glued them together, and I did that for 2 of my backgrounds. And then another 2 backgrounds, I took yellow and green cardstock and glued it to white cardstock, because the idea was I was going to have this green glitter cardstock glued to one of these white pieces, and then a mirror cardstock glued to one of these white pieces, and then put shiny backgrounds behind it. And with the die cut pieces that came out, I was going to piece them together onto these yellow and green backgrounds. So you'll see me do a few of these pieces so you can understand what I was trying to do. So for this yellow one, I'm using the green pieces that I had cut out from that green piece on my left. And I'm just adding adhesive and one by one piecing together these pieces of cardstock into the grooves that were created from this background. And so I ended up doing this for both the green and the yellow cardstock backgrounds, and they each took me about 30 to 45 minutes to get all of the pieces glued on and adhered, and then I just cut off the excess white cardstock that you see around those die cuts. So here I'm showing you the backgrounds. This is the completed one with the mirror cardstock on the glued to the green cardstock, and then you see the green glitter cardstock pieces glued to the background for the yellow. And then those white 3-layered pieces I had die cut, I had added mirror cardstock to one and glitter green cardstock to another. And then in order to have something pop up in the background, I'm taking these and then gluing them onto some A2 pieces. That's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 pieces I had just cut with my paper trimmer. And here I'm just showing you an example of how I've been gluing this. I put glue on every single piece to make sure that everything adhered and it wasn't going to pop up, and then all the way around. And then I go ahead and attach it to the background. And then I go ahead and let that dry. So I did that for the bottom left background as well, so that everything was finished and put together. And the next thing you're going to see me do is take these card fronts and attach them to A2 card bases. So I had picked out 2 yellow card bases and 2 green ones. I got them from a box of cards from the Paper Studio, which is sold at Hobby Lobby. And here I'm just using my tape runner, using on the back of the card front, and then just adhering it to the card base. And what's nice is that the cover plate gives it a nice border all the way around. So after I had made all of the backgrounds and attached them to the card bases, I started making my sentiments. So I knew I was going to have these big, large, lucky script die cuts on the front. So I wanted to make 2 cards that said, "Lucky you're together" for 2 engagement parties I'm going to, and then "Lucky you're my friend" just for general cards that I could use. So here I'm using these clear stamps from Hobby Lobby, where it's just different types of words that you can make into your own phrases. And in this case, "you're together" are 2 different words that were in that set. And I'm just using white embossing powder on green glitter cardstock and heat embossing that. And eventually you'll see that it'll be trimmed down as well so that it's not so big. And all of the scraps you see here are just scraps that were made from making the backgrounds, so I didn't use any additional cardstock. This is stuff that either would have been thrown out or tossed into my scrap pile had I not been using them for the sentiments. So here I'm using white embossing powder, "you're together" on the mirror cardstock. It's going to go on the 3rd card from the left. And I got some powder in some places, so I just took a dry brush to get that off, and then used my heat gun to melt it together. And you'll notice that I forgot to change out my sentiment here. It's supposed to be "you're my friend," and I accidentally kept the "you're together" one on here. So you see me about to ink it up and then realize I have the wrong sentiment on. So I cleaned it off and put the correct one on the plate. or on the stamp platform. And then the next thing you'll notice is that I have the white embossing powder out. However, after I had looked at putting the white embossing powder on the sentiment with the yellow background, it just really wasn't popping. It almost got lost with the yellow background. And so after I had seen that, I'd figured, you know what, it doesn't really look right. Let me just brush that off, and I'll go ahead and restamp it later with black so that it has more of a pop. So I decided to move on with the green cardstock instead. Put the You're My Friend sentiment on there with the white embossing powder since it was already out. Finish heat embossing that. And then after that was nice and melted, I had put that down and then worked on getting out my VersaFine Onyx ink pad, put away the white embossing powder, funneled it off into its jar, and then I got out my clear embossing powder. So this actually made a huge difference having the black ink on there. You could really see it on the yellow background, and it helped later on coordinating colors with the lucky die cut that I had made for it as well. So here I'm just putting the clear on. It's really neat because I actually start to heat it from the back so you can actually see it start to melt and turn black. Nice and shiny. So then here I'm just clearing everything out before I decide to trim down my smaller sentiments and then start working on what I'm going to do with the large script. So I cut out some practice pieces, not because I was going to use these colors, but just because I had actually cut them out a while ago and they were around, just to see if the word was going to fit on these cards, and also to get an idea of what colors I would like to use on the 4 different cards. So you see me kind of trying it out. And after that, off camera, I had die cut a whole bunch of lucky script words in green, yellow, mirror cardstock. I had run out of my glitter green cardstock, so unfortunately I wasn't able to make any of the words with that. So here I have a green shadow lucky. And this particular card is the only one where I used the wireframe on the outside. It does hang off the card a little bit, so it doesn't actually fit into an envelope properly. But I did want to just see one of them with it on because it does look pretty sharp. But I only did that with this card. And here I used the copper mirror cardstock as the outline on the outside, and then a green cardstock for the shadow, and then a white cardstock for the actual word on the inside. So here I'm just letting that dry and putting it to the side, which gives me time to work on another card at the same time. And I do recommend, if you're making cards, to try and do them in batches. It does make things go a lot quicker since you have everything out, and then you can have multiple cards done at the same time with less effort than having to make them individually. So while my lucky die cut is drying on my right, I'm actually going and working on the card on the left. And here you're seeing me put these little outline pieces into the triangle and the Y, and then the loop and the L. It just helps create that finished look and really makes that outline pop on that as well. So I was having a problem with the lucky drying for my second card, so I was still trying to smush it down with an acrylic block. And then you see me working on my first card again. I patted off some of the glue since it was a little too much. I didn't want it squishing out on the sides. And then I use an acrylic block and let that dry. And then I start to work on the second card and placing the lucky there. And then going back to my first card and putting foam tape on the smaller sentiment. I kind of wanted to get a little bit of dimension on the small sentiment since everything was bling. I really wanted to make sure everything was popping on it. So I'm just using some regular foam tape. I think I got this one at the Dollar Tree. So first card's done. Finishing up the second one. And I noticed that I had some glue on the mirror cardstock, and what's nice is that you can actually just scratch it off. It comes off very easily with liquid adhesive. So I was having a hard time gluing mirror cardstock to the mirror cardstock background, so I wiped off the liquid adhesive. I went ahead and got my Xyron tape runner, got it all taped up all over the word die cut, and then attached it to the card. And for both of these, I put lucky at a diagonal and then put the smaller sentiment in line with the card. So those are the first two that I had finished, very shiny and glittery. And then I'm just working on the last two cards. So here I went with yellow, black, and green as the colors. The sentiment being black on the "You're my friend" went really well with the black shadow, and then having the yellow word script in this case. And it just kind of pulled everything together. And here I'm just wiping off my table. I had a lot of glue and adhesive. I used the scraper that had come with this glass mat to try and scrape it all off, just to make a cleaner surface and not get glue all over my cards. So once again, I let one dry and I start working on the next card. I'm using a copper inside with a green shadow. And once again, I would have done this with green glitter cardstock, but I had run out after making these backgrounds. So while I'm waiting for the Lucky to dry, I'm actually putting the yellow sentiment onto the Lucky You're My Friend card. And there, that one's done. So with that other word die cut being done, just went ahead and glued that on. I didn't have any issues since it wasn't mirror cardstock on mirror cardstock. And at first I thought I was going to take this sentiment and treat it like the others, but I had noticed that I had accidentally cut off a little too much from the top when I had made this particular smaller sentiment, and thought it would probably be a better idea to have it sitting underneath the large word to kind of make it look like it was intentional that the top was cut off a little bit. So I took the foam tape off and I actually went ahead and pushed the smaller sentiment under that Lucky word die cut. And I just used tape runner for that. I actually picked up some of the letters and pushed the sentiment underneath. And it kind of made it all cohesive and intentional. And with that, all four of the cards were done. I went ahead and put everything away and just lined up all the cards so that you could see a comparison of all four of them. So thank you very much for watching this video. Please go to my description and go to the next link on the card hop. And I hope you enjoyed the bling theme, and thank you very much for watching.